We hear a lot about climate change, but what do cows have to do with it? That and more coming up on this new edition of Echo Africa, your weekly environmental program. I'm Chris Alems in Lagos, Nigeria.
And I am Sandra Twinobio here in Kampala, Uganda. Hello everybody, it is good to be here. So glad you could join us this week. So let's get started with a look at a few of today's topics. Can hot stones be used to cook food? What is green cooling? And can Liberia's forests be saved? Just as with most modern conveniences, people with refrigerators tend to take them for granted. In especially hot countries, air conditioning systems too. But in addition to guzzling a lot of electricity, the coolants in these devices are often old and have a big carbon footprint. But you know what? There are alternatives. We meet a group of technicians in Kenya who are looking into ways of switching to green cooling solutions.
Kenya's capital, Nairobi, is hot, and the residents seek solace with a cold soda or an icy bottle of water. Refrigerators and air conditioners contain harmful chemical refrigerants. When they enter the atmosphere, they attack the ozone layer that protects us from ultraviolet radiation. And they damage the climate 1,000 times more than carbon dioxide. In the year 2030, the refrigeration sector may be responsible for up to 13% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Kenya itself doesn't produce refrigerators or air conditioners, but 5,000 people work in the maintenance and repair of imported equipment. This workshop, run by the German Agency for International Cooperation, the GIZ, provides advanced training for refrigeration technicians in Nairobi. They're taught about green alternatives, so-called natural refrigerants.
Natural refrigerants are those refrigerants which do not affect the climate change and the ozone layer. The new refrigerants, which are called natural refrigerants, like R290 and R600A, they are not affecting the environment.
One of the natural refrigerants is propane, an extremely flammable gas. Anybody working with it has to follow strict safety precautions. It's a new challenge for Kenya's refrigeration technicians. Like Rahab Kabuki, she works for a major Kenyan milk producer.
When we come and learn the new ones, the safe natural hydrocarbons, we will slowly help the company eliminate them and even more, enlighten them more on the safe use of the safe refrigerants.
At the workshop, the technicians learn how to retrofit the refrigerators to use natural refrigerants. Private consumers can keep their old refrigerators and still make them green at an affordable price.
In fact, on an average normal for a new fridge, this size will cost you at around 25 to 28,000. But on recovering this one, changing the refrigerant, it will be cheaper. And of course, I will charge the labor now. So probably 5 to 8,000 will be good.
Like many other countries, Kenya has committed itself to gradually phasing out harmful refrigerants. The country believes it has already made substantial progress.
By now, we are at 35% reduction of that, 35 reduction target. So that by 2025, we should be moving to 67.5% reduction. And then 2026, we are through with it.
To achieve that goal, change is needed not only among private consumers, but also in shops and supermarkets. John Kea's company retrofits commercial refrigerators. The transition to natural refrigerants pays off because energy consumption of the refrigerators drops significantly.
Cooling simply means use of environment-safe refrigerant with minimum energy. The customers which normally use these systems are more informed even than the supplier about the safe gases. So for them, when they place an order, they say, okay, we want CO2 refrigerant units, or we want hydrocarbon.
Putting theory into practice. GIZ workshop participant Makena Gachao is employed by an air conditioning maintenance company. The technician is retrofitting cooling equipment with new refrigerants. The green cooling revolution in Kenya is taking place slowly but steadily.
In our next report, we look at another way of making our homes greener. Sustainable cooking stoves are a subject we've covered a lot here at Eco Africa. This week, we check out a project here in Uganda that is revolutionizing cooking by replacing firewood with hot stones. Here is this week's Doing a Bit.
They look like charcoal, but they're actually cooking stones. Shaban Kawuki from Kayunga in Uganda came up with the idea. He finds the material he needs scattered around his village. Kawuki breaks stones into small pieces and mixes them with clay, water, and cow dung. The mixture is then rolled into small balls. Left to dry in the sun for 3 days, they form hard stones.
I used to see women putting stones in their charcoal stoves. They told me the stones help them save charcoal while cooking. I realized that one stone could hold a lot of heat. So, if I mixed small stones in clay and cow dung, they would continue to heat the clay mixture from the inside.
Locals have embraced his cooking stones because they're cheap and last longer than wood or charcoal. So Shaban Kawuki's innovation also helps to preserve Uganda's forests too.
And how about you? If you're also doing your bit, tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We share your stories.
Cow dung also features in our next report, but this time the emphasis is on what cows have to do with climate change. Did you know that one cow produces an average 100 kilos of methane a year?
That's right, and methane is one of the main drivers of climate change, accounting for 20% of global emissions. If we're really going to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, we need to reduce them. A Norwegian company has developed a system that makes the methane in cow dung harmless, and it's now been tested in Britain.
The world's cattle population currently stands at around 1 billion. The cows spend most of the day eating, then redigesting their food. The process releases huge volumes of climate-killing methane gas in their flatulence and their dung. On a UK farm in Buckinghamshire, Norwegian company N2 Applied is testing a way of making the methane in cattle dung harmless. A manure scraper collects the waste and deposits it in a pit. It's then pumped into a system where it gets high-tech treatment, all right next to the cows.
So with this machine, we are creating plasma, which is basically like lightning. And we create that in this section of the machine and force it through into the slurry, which is in this second stage of the process, which is the absorption process. And that's where we're locking in both methane and ammonia emissions.
As the liquefied excrement is zapped by the unit's 50 kilowatt plasma torch, nitrogen from the air is fed into the process. The combination binds the ammonia and methane in the slurry.
So the process, when we add nitrogen from air to the slurry, it changes the environment to stop methanogenesis, basically. So it drops the pH down to just below 6. And we're catching that early, so it stops the breakdown of those methane microbes that then release the gas to the air.
Methane is the second most abundant greenhouse gas after CO2. It also occurs naturally from sources like swamps or thawing permafrost and volcanic activity. Global methane emissions have reached record highs in recent years. About 60% of the emissions are caused by human activity. Like methane emissions produced through the burning of biomass, from rice cultivation, landfills, and from the use of fossil fuels. But cattle rearing is responsible for the largest share of global methane emissions. That makes methane-reducing innovations critical, like this high-tech testing facility in Britain. It's expected to reach the market this year. The company estimates it'll cost about the same size as a mid-sized tractor, depending on how many cattle it has to cater to. Its modular design means it can be tailor-made to a farm's needs. The process leaves behind a brown liquid.
This is what comes out. We call it Neo, and the odour has been completely removed.
Farmers can use this treated dung to spread across their fields the same as any fertiliser. But this boosts crop growth without releasing methane into the atmosphere like normal slurry.
An over 99% reduction in methane emissions from slurry, so practical elimination there. 95% reduction in ammonia emissions, and we practically double the nitrogen content of the slurry, which can be used as a more sustainable fertiliser source.
For a herd of 200 cows, the technology can save the equivalent of 199 tonnes of CO2 a year. The UK alone has 9 million cows, so wide-scale adoption would make a huge dent in global methane emissions. And there are plans to adapt its usage for pig farming too. Critics say it would be better to prevent the production of all that methane in the first place. But the fact is, cattle farming is unlikely to disappear completely anytime soon. In the meantime, this technology can at least reduce the impact on our climate.
Now back to Africa, where we visit a real pioneer here on the continent. Malawi banned the production of plastic bags in 2015. But the reality is unfortunately very different, and the country is still full of plastic waste. We met a woman who's taking matters into our own hands.
Once a month, people all over Malawi take to the streets for a few hours to clean up their towns. But there are ways to turn a chore into something fun.
It's always a good conversation starter when you sort of try to dance and try to just engage with people. And I think it's also been a really good way to connect with people and just show them and explain them. And I know it's going to take a lot of time for people to actually change how they see things and how they do things, but it's quite fulfilling to see them come out and actually be part of it.
Gloria Majiga Kamoto encourages people to take responsibility for the cleanliness of their neighborhoods. After all, not all areas can rely on official waste collection, and even in places that can, the service is often irregular. The drainage system is constantly clogged.
Yes, when they take those rubbish there, they drop inside there.
In Malawi, most waste ends up in landfills. Some people try to eke out a living sifting through the trash for things to resell. But there are other opportunities to make good use of the rubbish too. Gloria Majiga Kamoto has partnered with a local company that takes bottles and other waste plastics. Once it's been cleaned and shredded, it can then be used as a raw material to make other things, like bricks.
This thing is 60% sand, it is 20% thinner plastic, and 10% PET thicker plastic. And then you get this, which is stronger than concrete.
Around 60,000 tons of plastic waste is generated in Malawi each year. Frustrated by that, Majiga Kamoto joined fellow activists in battling the plastics industry, pushing the government and the courts to outlaw plastic products, a fight she continues in her job at the NGO, the Center for Environmental Policy and Advocacy. Techniques have ranged from lobbying and legal action to protests. Malawi became one of the first countries in Africa to impose a ban on single-use plastics. But the plastics industry challenged the decision and it's been hard to enforce. A walk around the market is a reminder that there's still a long way to go.
So he's actually got a huge stock right in the back there. And it is very frustrating because by now, what we had hoped was that in the last 2 years, if the ban had been enforced in the time that it was brought in, by now we would not have seen any of these plastics at all.
Majiga Kamoto says he could encourage his customers to bring their own reusable bags. He agrees that it's a good idea. In cooperation with the government, her organization is launching Malawi's first national waste management plan.
There has to be that pressure for things to happen, for movement to happen. There's been issues in courts for a long time that nothing has happened to them. But on this one, we've made headway because of people, civil society, and people like her working very hard to make sure that this is done.
Having gained such recognition for her work, Gloria Majiga Kamoto isn't afraid to dream big.
10 years, I might just be the president, who knows? But you'll definitely know my name.
Wow, what an amazing woman. Instead of wasting resources and producing more and more, there's really only one thing we can do, and that's recycle. A fashion company in Ghana is proving that recycling is not only good for the environment, it can also be a lot of fun.
Fashion and fun certainly go hand in hand. Accra-based design label Boy & Bill is known for colorful, eye-catching, and sustainable creations. Elisha Ofori Banfo and his brother Calvin have been a part of Ghana's fashion scene for some time. Now they're making their signature items from waste materials like plastics and broken mirrors.
Our main goal was to create the same effect, like the same jackets and stuff that people knew us for. We wanted to create the same thing with the rubbers and the jacket, like to make them have the same feel. And then since we launched it about a year and a half now, it's been going great.
Bamfo and members of his team collect plastic waste they find littering their community. Ghana recycles no more than 5% of the 1 million tons of plastic generated. The waste materials are carefully sorted and prepared, ready to be sewn. With their Boy & Bill label, the young designers are among the forerunners in their field when it comes to creating wearables through upcycling. They hope to inspire as many Ghanaians as possible to start choosing their sustainable fashion. When the coronavirus pandemic made runway shows impossible, Bamfo's crew didn't just hang around waiting for things to change. In the small studio, they put together a virtual fashion event. Models showcased the latest creations before they were made available for purchase. Mentoring the future generation is also important to Bamfo. He visits schools like this to speak to children, encouraging them to consider a career in fashion.
I reach out to them and talk to them because I believe that if they knew how juicy the market was and how they can make a living out of it, like most of them will aspire to be designers.
Today's talk already seems to have motivated several of the kids. Many say they want to become fashion designers, just like Bamfo.
What said is inspiring, like what he even said, I want to be a fashion designer with what he said because what he's wearing really attracts me.
Ghana is already home to a number of stylish fashion labels, but Bamfo and his brother now hope to take it to the next level. Today, Accra, tomorrow, the world.
From Ghana, we head over to Liberia. The country is covered with rainforests. Governments and the private sector across the world are working hard to preserve biodiversity in these types of forests.
But the problem is most of these forests are incredibly thick and difficult to traverse. So how do scientists know exactly what species are in them if they can't always see them? A team from Fauna and Flora International is taking a new approach to this problem.
Sapo National Park in Liberia, 1,800 square kilometers of dense primary rainforest. The flora and fauna here are protected by law. But still, poaching remains a problem. Pangolins and even chimpanzees are killed to be eaten, so-called bushmeat. The poachers often come from the surrounding communities, so conservationists want to get locals involved in caring for the park. Thomas Dogbe hails from the area. He's worked as a biomonitoring ranger for more than 10 years. With the help of wildlife cameras, he can track animal movements. Like those of the pygmy hippo, there are just 3,000 left worldwide. Dogbe is convinced that locals will stop poaching only when they recognize the benefit of keeping the animals alive.
We tell the community people not to kill the pygmy hippo, because when the tourists come, they want to see the pygmy hippo. Then the community people, they getting benefit from the forest.
So what other animals live in the national park? The thick jungle makes traditional surveying methods difficult, but now the team of conservationists have a new tool. When an animal crosses the river, it leaves behind minute amounts of its DNA through urine, sweat, or skin cells. The water can be collected and filtered through a simple kit. The resulting sample is then sent for analysis to a laboratory where technicians can look for the DNA signatures of specific animals.
This kit right here represents a game changer that will help to improve the efficiency of the way we do scientific research in terms of identifying the presence of species in areas that we work, to be able to get an idea of the lesser known species that are sometimes missed by our more extensive survey.
It's known as environmental DNA or eDNA and has allowed the conservationists to identify new endangered species they had previously not been aware of. Among them, the Janting's duiker, a kind of antelope, and the Diana monkey. The conservationists explained the new DNA method to residents of the national park and shared their discoveries so far. They want to encourage a kind of ecological awareness.
My hope for eDNA in the future is that this whole idea of using citizens, local community to help to gather information will bring people closer to biodiversity and will help them to appreciate more and work to protecting and conserving our unique biodiversity.
Yet, certain species still face an acute threat. That's because logging is permitted in some parts of the 3-kilometer buffer zone around the park. The new DNA method has discovered endangered species in these areas, including the grey parrot and the western red colobus monkey.
Communities will also realize that the forests close to the national park are valuable, and they will realize that protection of this forest is as vital as protecting the national park. And through that, they will start prospecting licenses and logging activities that could threaten this forest, because they know that these valuable species exist in that forest.
If parts of the buffer zone were incorporated into the national park, the animals would be better protected, but the inhabitants would no longer be able to cut down trees there. If they weren't compensated for that, it could lead to conflicts. Sapo National Park is one of the largest swathes of primary rainforest in West Africa. Its protection will only succeed if it's in the interest of local populations and not against them.
I'm scared we've run out of time for today. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check in with us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. For now, I am Sandra Twinoblio saying bye-bye from Kampala here in Uganda.
It's also time for me to bid you farewell from here in Lagos. Hope our show inspired you to discover ways in which you too can support climate action. I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Till then, stay safe.